Clint Culberson.
Thanks for having me on, man. First episode.
The first episode. Yeah, so for people who are watching this, so we have been talking about starting a podcast for a while now.
Yeah.
And we don't even really know what we're going to call it yet. But we're both going to interview whoever we want.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be an opportunity to, spread the topics that we want to spread in our audience, our community in the desert Southwest, and also whatever can apply to people beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, obviously we have a very arid climate specialty, but this permaculture, land regeneration, rainwater harvesting, all these movements that we're behind, they're transferable to all types of land on climes. So we're very focused on the desert and how to optimize it here, and it's been a lot of fun doing that here. And yeah, man, it's gonna be a great platform to unfold all these visions many of us are having, and this education, get it out to as much people as possible. And then really showing, the work that's being done around town that we're doing and other people are doing to further this, this vision forward.
Yeah. I remember the way that we first met. I owned a house here in Gilbert at the time. We're at the Riparian Preserve, by the way. And I think I looked up rainwater harvesting on Google. Galaxy Gardens came up.
Yep.
And so I just reached out, scheduled a consult. You showed up to my house, and we jammed for 2 hours.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll never forget that, man. It was like we were in a podcast episode that first day together. So that was one of those, this is a special meeting. Beyond a potential job, it was like, oh, wait a minute, this is a friend I just met. And now we're partnered together in the work that we're doing, and it's just so cool how that unfolds. When you set forward on something you're very passionate about, and especially when it's something that brings such reciprocal benefits to anyone it touches, the universe puts you in touch with the other people that are about that.
Yeah.
And you find the other X-Men, if you will, that are, powering up in their individual life, and then you start aligning with these other people because you realize you can't do it alone. And it's just amazing how that works. So, and you and me were a beautiful example of that.
Yeah, you guys had already been doing it so this would have been probably in late 2021 or maybe early 2022. I can't remember exactly, but when did Galaxy Gardens in its current iteration start?
Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Clint Culberson. I am the owner of Galaxy Gardens, co-owner of it with my man Evan Duteau. And I started this in 2019. I was doing irrigation work. I discovered permaculture when I had been in the corporate world, left the corporate world. And didn't know exactly where I was going to go, but I just knew that I needed to I found permaculture and realized I got to do something in this. It was the thing that gave me the most hope. I had my whole life experience in the landscape world, at a local level and even at a corporate level, and then found permaculture and realized I was doing it all wrong and really wanted to go back into the world through the permaculture lens. Started the company in 2019, was, mostly just doing irrigation work just to pay my bills, using kind of, much more improved piping, trying to fix leaks, kind of this water conservation focus. There's so many leaky irrigation systems all throughout town, so I felt really good about doing that. But, then it was there's a lot more to it than just, good irrigation. And we started getting, talking my irrigation customers into doing some basins or to planting some fruit trees or adding mulch to, parts of their yard, and these little small projects that I was just evangelizing to while I'm replacing all their drip lines.
Yeah, just kind of dripping.
And then, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then those projects start happening, and then you start getting known for them, and then you're doing full yard remodels, and then And then now, fast forward a couple years later here, and we're, probably done over 100 projects around town, like pretty big ones, full remodel, kind of this type of scale. And yeah, the movement, the demand for these services has just totally increased to we're maxed out at, we're expanding, we're in expansion mode because the demand is there now. So yeah,
that's cool that you started like just kind of like planting the seeds of change in your customers' minds. So you mentioned the improved pipes. So I just want to ask, did you already know about swing pipe when you started?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you started Galaxy?
Yeah, in fact, when I had left the corporate world, I worked for a farm for about 2 years, so I got the local food movement experience.
Here in the valley?
Yeah, exactly. I was working for Abbey Lee Farms in South Phoenix.
Okay.
Running farmers markets, selling tomatoes and the like, and so a really important experience for me. And then was like, I started doing irrigation work for a guy out in Queen Creek, just working for him, and was like, well, I just need to go do this on my own. It was a nice jump start to get back into the landscape world, and then got my contractor's license and started Galaxy Gardens again, mostly doing irrigation in the beginning, and then till now it's 100% permaculture work, really. So yeah, like I used to do certain kind of traditional landscape work just to pay the bills, but we try to steer clear of that. We always say, between you and I, like, we love doing hardscape work, but for my rainwater customers, I'm happy to do a patio extension.
Yeah.
But if that's all you want to do, call someone else, because we want to make sure that we're focusing on these rainwater systems and food production and all that kind of stuff.
Because there's no shortage of hardscapers out there.
No shortage of that. No. We do great hardscape, but that is not, that's not our concentration or focus.
Yeah, it has to be like a lot of people default to hardscape.
Yes.
And I like that we try to encourage people to think about what's the necessary application of hardscape and in what ways, how can hardscape complement and support your goals, but like, what are actually your goals? Getting people thinking about, what would you really want from this yard? And a lot of times I've found that a lot of people don't even realize what's possible, especially when you get the whole system right. Yes. They think, oh, well, if I want to have a few fruit trees, I'm going to be, up to my neck in water bills.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of people, this has changed over the last decade, but a lot of people didn't realize what we can actually grow here. What was possible. It's too hot, and in many cases it is too hot, but plants, certain plants and trees in the wrong locations and not with the right amount of water and not without mulch and all that. Yeah, it's not a good, it is impossible. But, in the last decade, we've gone through here in the Phoenix area, this food forest movement, and I do give credit to guys like Jake Mace, Seamus O'Leary, Jay Barringer, there's others, Greg Peterson, these really great kind of pioneers in town over the last decade, helping us with the mulch movement, changing this, switching out gravel for organic wood mulch, and the soil building concept, like looking at soil as part of our main interaction with the land, and how to change that, and then also again this kind of food production at the urban level, not only just as like a hobby, and many of us are doing it as a hobby, but even as a political action, to potentially increase our food security at a home level, community level, as a buffer to the extremes of the chaos of the political world. The volatility of the greater world. So we're all feeling that, and so this is actually a solution to that. It's something that if we took seriously, expanded outwards, and as a community, we could actually create quite a buffer zone between that and the despotism of the rulers, if you will. And so It's just really been cool to see these pioneers around town, all, different neighborhoods where you get the one guy in the neighborhood of, the big HOA where he's got wood chips and he's got 7 fruit trees that you've never seen before. And you're like, what the heck's this yard? It's not this. One of these things is not like the others. And, and you're starting to see them more and more pop up around town. You're seeing, local tree nursery guys that have popped up. Making their living off of growing, bringing the fruit trees to the market, not just buying them at Home Depot and Lowe's and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So changing that, and so it's been really cool to see. So, and then us coming in with our more permaculture of the incorporating the rain.
Yeah.
And incorporating drainage into these food forest systems, and that's bringing in Brad Lancaster's work, all the work that's been done down in Tucson over the last decade or two. And they're really, Tucson brings that. While we want to revitalize the wildlife, we want to revitalize the land for the land's sake itself, and they've been, and then moving the water, and just what Brad has done with his book, which. That if you want to talk about my story, reading Brad Lancaster's book, Rainwater Harvesting for Dry Lands and Beyond, Volume 1 and 2, have just utterly blown the doors off my world. And, we've focused our entire business around this education.
Is that why? Was it those books and his work that made you want to focus on rainwater?
Yeah. I'd found permaculture, Jeff Lawton, the Australian one of the godfathers of permaculture, discovered his work, but then Brad's work is basically very like Sonoran desert permaculture, and resource maximization in landscape design, and it just blew me away, man. And so that's where and rainwater is already a vital part of the permaculture model. But it's very, Brad's book is just so centric on here, specifically the dry lands, arid climates, and specifically here in the Sonoran Desert. So it's just very, very personalized for us that we live here, and we have this guy who wrote this book, and really spelled out just in high detail how to build these systems in order to maximize resources, maximize shade coverage, maximize food production, maximize wildlife in the urban environment. It's awesome. It's just the way to live, Many of us inherently know, you can feel it, we tore down the desert to build these neighborhoods, and you just inherently feel like, man, we're doing something wrong, when you with just your lantanas and your bougainvilleas and some non-native shade tree and just 2 inches of 1-inch gravel spread over thousands of square feet and making it all hotter, and just it just feels it inherently feels a little cringy, and especially then you get into like all the astroturf and the and that's been that wasn't even a thing before 10 years ago, and then the last 10 years in the traditional landscape world, we've gotten into the hardscape hells and the astroturf hellscapes that are so popular, and they look good in the beginning because the turf's so green, and I don't have to mow it or water it. Hey, I'm ecological. I'm saving money. I'm not watering. And that is one of the positives. But we're increasing the heat island. And that's a real big topic for me, is the heat island effect and how we can counter that. You get into the climate change topic, and it's so political. It just you can't even bring up the topic because it just feels too. It's you automatically go into the political headspace, whereas the heat island is something very provable. It's not politicized. It's like for real. Like if you chop down a desert and then put concrete and asphalt and buildings and stucco and cinder block, it just gets hotter, and that's provable. And as Phoenix has expanded, probably the fastest growing city of the last 30 years in the United States, and we've just experienced, and we're already hot as hell. So, magnifying that, we got a situation on our hands, and we got to do something about it before it, becomes so unlivable for several months of the year. Yeah. And these strategies and this ethos that we're after, regreening the desert, increasing shade canopy, bringing our food systems closer to home. These are all things that are going to make us, they're going to make it so that we're all here 7 generations from now, not this isn't just some short-term Ponzi scheme by developers to tear down the desert and then 100 years from now we don't have enough water to keep it going, but who cares? They already made their profit and they're out. We got to be careful we're not creating ghost towns of the future, you know, and that's what this design model is a solution against that, and that we potentially could even start regenerating aquifers and you know, being very viewing the water that comes to us as sacred and using it in its most optimal form. Not that we can't use water. I know I'm kind of going on here, but you know, I'm also one that doesn't feel like we should have all this water guilt. Like if you brush your teeth too long, that you're some terrible guy or something. Like when you really understand the water numbers and like just how much water is being used in different, you know, how it's being allocated throughout the state, you know, then you see different sources, but basically it's like 85 to 90% of all the water is going to flood irrigation agriculture here in Arizona.
Like commercial agriculture.
Yeah, you know, alfalfa fields, cotton fields, and the like, right?
Yeah.
Cornfields, all that stuff that's growing all around, you know, even out, you don't see it as much here in Phoenix anymore, but all around the state, you know, inefficiently flooding in the entire field just to water, you know, crop. You know, and they're making efforts at the state level to reduce that, drip irrigation and things like that to help mitigate that. I mean, that's the big daddy of them all. Now, us at the city level, I think it's something like 7 to 8% of the water is like industrial power plants and big giant stuff that's using hella water to function. And then really that last 5 to 7%, again, depending on the sources, it's all of our residential, commercial, and like, you know, light industrial, government stuff, all the schools. So we're talking about a very small piece of the pie that's going to like basically everything we see on a day-to-day level. So, you know, I'm not saying that you should just say, oh, who cares about water, like just do everything. You know, we should definitely, even with the piece of the pie that we are allotted, we need to be using it in the most optimal forms, and that's what we're all about. But I also say use some water and, you know, build biomass in your yard or in your neighborhoods, and you know, we can't be so like eco guilty all the time that you can't use any water. You know, I say use some water and grow some trees and see if we can build ecosystems with some of this water, so that over time, especially as you're building mature ecology, those systems actually use less water over time, because, you know, building that upper canopy, you know, you're decreasing evaporation. When the water is in those systems, it stays in there because it's not getting jacked again by the sun. Or, you know, just poor ass drainage into the city reservoir, and again, because half of it getting evaporated because it's in open reservoirs. So, so yeah, man, I'm seeing a lot of reasons to be optimistic, though, that we have this education now, that we have a way forward, and now it's really just a matter of the people pioneering. You know, we always say to our customers, you're a pioneer in your neighborhood. You know, you're showing what's possible to the other people now. Your investment into this landscape design and build here, investing with us to do this work, is also kind of you're kind of a missionary to your people around you.
They're demonstration plots.
Yeah. And then if you could start getting 2 or 3 houses, or maybe even a couple houses right next door to each other, and you're building these kind of ecosystems together, you can really start seeing some pretty nice, you know, effects. So, I mean, we're sitting here at the Gilbert Riparian Preserve. This used to be I used to live right next to this place, and back in the 90s, and this used to be a cornfield. I mean, this was a cornfield, and now it's this complete, you know, most people would have no idea. You know, they would think this was always here all along. I mean, you see all this all these Sonoran desert, you know, classic trees and plants that all building this incredible ecosystem. There's so many animals that live in the riparian preserve, and it's just I think it's a 1 square mile or something like that. It's not even that much, you know, 40 acres, or I can't, you know, don't quote me, but something like that. And there's so much life just in this 1 square mile that used to be a monocultured, flood irrigated cornfield to now be in this kind of wastewater, just, literally bird migrations are coming to this plot of land as part of their migrations now because of what humans did for the good.
Yeah.
So, really exciting.
Man.
So there you go. I said a lot.
There's so much to unpack. I want to check, make sure everything is going correctly. Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, so you mentioned a lot of people are surprised by what they can even grow out here. What are some of the most surprising things that grow easily out here, assuming, the right things going on, but what are people most surprised to learn they can grow?
Well, first let me say this. I think potentially Phoenix, specifically Phoenix, not even Tucson, because Tucson's a little colder. In fact, they struggle to grow citrus even down there, and for sure the tropicals are a tough game down there. And what guys like Jake Mays and Seamus and Jay have shown is that we have a lot of these tropical species that can be grown here because we don't get too cold, and they can handle the heat. And so we've started to see what a palette of plants we have. Like other than Southern California, like we might have some of the highest quantities of species that at our disposal as humans that want to grow fruit. So we have we're known for citrus. One of the 5 C's of Arizona is citrus, so we're famous for that. And you can still grow citrus here even with our hotter summers. There's still can have a lot of citrus abundance. And a lot of people even know that there's a lot of low chill hour stone fruit, peaches, plums, nectarines, apricots, and also the other deciduous like, apples and pears, that there's several varieties that do really well here. One of the best, on the deciduous, probably the best fruit tree here is the mulberry. The figs as well. I mean, there's a reason the Arabs grew figs and mulberries and pomegranates and dates, things like that. They figured it out, what works in super hot climates. So, mulberry, figs these are must-haves. They're must-haves in your yard. I mean, everyone should be growing these. As you want to. A lot of people are scared to grow things because they've had some failures, Well, guess what? Guys like me and you, we've killed way more plants than most people that any of my customers have.
We've killed more plants than most people have than those people have tried to grow.
Right. Yeah, we killed a lot, and that's how we've gotten good at it. It takes that learning curve you got to kill a bunch of plants to eventually get good at keeping them alive.
That's right.
And so we're trying to help people blast through that. So getting back to the fruit, now we've realized there's a bunch of tropicals that can, especially in more inner circle of Phoenix,
the hottest part.
The hottest parts. If you can, you can have these little microclimates that'll do really well. Bananas are probably one of the best. There's people doing mangoes. It's a harder tree to grow, but it can happen. Sapotes and Barbados cherries and all these really neat tropicals. I mean, I'm a fan of the tropicals. I still think they're it's still kind of a more advanced level plants. You need to build the microclimate in order to introduce these kind of plants to your yard. So, if your yard's just bare, south facing, like don't go throw an avocado tree in the back, okay? If you can even ever do an avocado, it must be years later after you've built out an ecosystem that can kind of, give a buffer to that.
Yeah.
Even then, I would say that's not my main focus. Is like these kind of fringy plants they can have successes, but at the end of the day, if you live in these, humans, especially the Western humans, we've only lived here for 100 years, really. I mean, the natives have been here a lot longer, and they weren't growing mango trees here. But there are even a lot of these, but they were growing a lot of even our Sonoran desert food forest, we can call it. We're all throughout this riparian preserve. There's hundreds of these wolfberry bushes that are providing insane amount of food production for all the bird life around here. But that could be human consumption as well, and our plants that are extremely resilient to the ebbs and flows of our climate. We are getting hotter, whatever the source is. At a minimum, it's just the heat island itself. But we are experiencing these greater climatic changes. The Earth is constantly changing climate. So we're very short-term thinkers. So and the point I'm bringing is that, given enough years of living here, you're eventually going to get a big frost. It does get cold here eventually, and it could wipe out a lot of these kind of tropical plants.
In the same way that there's the 10-year rain events, there's the 100-year rain events.
Exactly.
There's like a 10-year frost event.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, you'll eventually get them. So, if your whole yard is tropical, and you're here for 20 years, there might be a year where it just cooks everything you got. Which is again why we're a big believer in this. This is kind of following more the agroforestry model of using diverse plants to help, not just growing all tropicals, but taking your velvet mesquite tree, and that can handle the holy hell of any summer, and using these as protectors for a couple of your more sensitive fruit trees that could potentially protect them when we get those extreme, whether that's what was it, within the last 3 years, we broke all the records for, number of days over 110. I think it was 2020, 35 days in a row over 110, man. Killing citrus, killing.
The saguaros falling over.
Exactly.
In the city.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that's a reality. So that's why, even though I'm a fan that we can grow this plethora of plants, I still recommend to people listen, here's the plants in the center circle here that can handle cold, if it ever did, and then can also handle the 35 days of 110 and above.
Yeah.
And those are the ones, the mulberries, the figs, the citrus, these low chill peaches and plums and apples and pears that can bring a lot of food production, but given the right microclimate, can actually take a pounding and not lose your investment. And that's where I'm building an agroforestry system at the land that I'm living on right now out in Santan Valley, 3.5 acres. We're gonna have hundreds of fruit trees. I have a little bit of a Noah's Ark especially close to the house, all my favorite fruit trees with some variety and maybe a couple trees that are susceptible to these extremes, and if I lose them, then okay. But the majority of the land's going to be planted with, again, I'm focusing on mulberries, figs, peaches, and citrus. So some of the battle-tested plants that have done traditionally do really well here, and especially when you have them in dense plantings, especially when you're using support species like native trees, native shrubs as protectors of our fruit trees, then now you're talking.
So let me ask you this, because this is a recurring concept that so many people want to better understand, is if you let's say that you have a north-south facing lot, you got, I don't know, 30 by 30 square foot backyard, just sort of a default. There's nothing but gravel out there.
Right.
Maybe there's a couple Texas sage bushes that have been over pruned by the landscapers, whatever. Right. But for the most part, hi. Just gonna start my question over. I don't know how much it picks up on that. What I want to ask you is, how do you approach, I want you to just basically name the trees and the plants in the order that you would fill out a blank canvas in suburban Phoenix Valley, not the super hot center, not, the coldest areas of the valley, but just kind of average. Mm-hmm. How do you design a diverse system that's going to provide fruit year-round, veggies year-round, eggs, chicken eggs or whatever? You're starting with a blank slate. Yeah. What's the first thing you plant and where?
So let's say you have a south-facing backyard. I want to get the heat down, right? So we're going to plant the most battle-hardy species. This is where you really want to put in your sport species first, and that again would be, any of these native tree species that can just get us some shade canopy. The Sonoran Desert has the most tree species of any desert in the world. You know, our keystone, I think the 3 keystone species of the Sonoran Desert, and I say it all the time, Palo Verde, the mesquite, and the desert ironwood. Those are our 3, you know, the great beauties of our desert. They're the ones creating all these beautiful ecosystems in the desert. You know, these mesquite trees pop up and all these other plants are kind of popping up around them because the mesquite tree can be such a protector for them. Oftentimes you see saguaros growing on the north side of a mesquite tree. So that's a good example. But getting in there, you know, if you have gravel, if you can afford it, get rid of the gravel, you know, and have a mulching plan. It's vital. It's a really big part. I mean, we always say we're mulch missionaries, so we're trying to bring the gospel of mulch to you, that getting rid of this inorganic rock and replacing it with something that is going to break down over time and also build that soil, and then really protect the soil and hold water in the soil. It's just, again, I could go on and on about mulch. But getting those support species that is from the tree canopy, you know, mesquites and ironwoods and palo verdes. We also have acacias, many acacia varieties. The desert willow is another awesome one. The other ones about the acacias, palo verdes, mesquites, and ironwood is they're all legume trees, all nitrogen fixing trees. You put them in your yard and they're literally depositing nitrogen into the soil. So it's like a fertilizer factory below. And then it's a mulch builder from top, you know, shedding all these little tiny leaves. You can see them all over here, this beautiful leaf mulch, which is, you know, breaks down quicker even than woody mulch. Just fantastic for that. So, you know, thinking about these native guys to bring into our yard, and then also even the lower level, the shrub layer. We love using green hopseed bush, you know, some of the yellow bell, the Tacoma stands and all their color varieties, the yellow bells, the orange jubilees, the sparkies, and all those kind of, even though they're a bit of a hybridized plant, they create these great, you know, block your cinder block walls, basically. That's another one. I mean, we want to cover the hardscape of your house somehow. Cover those cinder block walls so that you can lower the ambient heat, and then we can, you know, start planting non-native, potentially more food producers that can enter that system. And going back to even the sport species, even the shrub layer, we're really, you know, one of our big things is wildlife reintroduction. Our backyard should be pollinator gardens. I mean, we are so blessed here in the Sonoran Desert to have a kaleidoscope of pollinator plants, non-thorny, soft, gentle, beautiful, you know, doesn't have to be cacti and choyas and something that's going to make you bleed. There's plenty of those as well, and I'm not afraid of those. I love those guys as well. But if you're very desert averse, you know, you can't stand the thorny stuff, well, we have so many great options with that as well, you know. If you're willing to go thorny, then man, you can build some really hardy ecosystems. If you want to go non-thorny, again, like desert willows, things like that are still native, you know, plants that have evolved for the last 10,000 years to live in this climate, using those as our ecosystem builders. Now, if you have a small yard and you don't really want a thorny ironwood in your yard, then you know, and you do want fruit production.
Or a giant mesquite.
What's that?
Or a giant mesquite.
Or a giant mesquite that just maybe can't fit in your yard. Well, I would say if you just only can have a certain amount of trees in your yard, I would say then you build your ecosystem with a mulberry tree. You know, use mulberry as a shader, you know, this to kind of cool it down, but then also as a food producer and a mulch maker with the leaf shed we get in the wintertime, and using mulberry as your kind of, you know, start there. And then before you want to plant a persimmons tree, you know, I love persimmons, of course, but you know, that should be year 3 or 4 as opposed to starting it right away. And so that's how I would look at it. And if you had like a blank slate, you want to build biomass, you want to get shade and start with shade even before fruit. Even the first couple of years with fruit, you're going to be pulling that fruit off so you can be promoting the growth of the plant itself and not putting all the energy into the fruit. So really you're trying to just get biomass. I want leaves and branches to cover my yard up. And, but using those hardy boys, if you will, the sport species in combination with these fruiting non-native fruit species, man, you can build really resilient landscapes that will handle when you get the 110, that your whole yard doesn't die and you just wasted $15,000 of money and all these plantings and which people have. These are big investments that people make in their yard, and you want to make sure that you have very minimal dieback, and there's ways to do that. And then again, if that's kind of the planting model, but the real, our ethos is you got to plant the water and then you plant the plants, right? And part of that is irrigation. So using city water, running with the best equipment that's not going to leak in 10 years. And you're investing in something that's really going to be there a while. But then also, especially for us, is planting the rain. Using the roof runoff of your home, and channeling that water into the root zones of these plants, and it's the good, better, best. I mean, if you have irrigation from city water and you have that up to all your plants, that's good. If you have, and then you incorporate rainwater into that as well through these kind of basin swale systems that we do, man, that's better. And then you're incorporating like gray water. Your laundry machine is also being pumped out into some of your fruit tree basins. There's the best. All the tiers of the water usage and thoughtfully designing them into your systems, and you can turn your rocky ass moonscape backyard into like really an oasis that you might not even know. Like 5 years from now, you'll be in your backyard. If you wouldn't know you're in Arizona. And I've been in those yards, and they're fantastic. And they're, even middle of the summer, you will want to go outside. And if you have kids, I mean, the name of the game with kids is how can I get my kids off screens? And for 6 months of the year, it's so hot that a lot of people's yards, they're just on screens for 6 months of the year because it's so damn hot. Yeah. So if you build these ecosystems in your backyard, your kids you can actually play outside in July, if there's actually some shade, and there's, and you got multiple layers, not just up above, but even shading our walls with, green, with vines or shrubs or all of that. So, and then you had talked about garden beds, how do we thinking about, we have 2 grow seasons here. We're so blessed here to have 2 grow seasons for raised beds. We have a winter, cool season, and then a hot season. And strategically thinking about where sun orientation is, obviously in the middle of the summer, it's right overhead, and factoring our placement of gardens with that, as well as in the cool season when the sun is much lower and coming in at an angle. And so trying to make sure, in the cool season, you want as much, sun as possible. And in the hot season, we're trying to protect and shade and all that. So it's trying to find the spot in your yard that checks both boxes, which varies for most people, but you can find those spaces. So.
And so to that point, I mean, we could talk about microclimates, like the different angles of the sun throughout the year, but like where do you plant the mulberry?
Yeah. So, well, let's think about the sun is the most intense. I always say the Grim Reaper comes out at 4 p.m. here in the desert, right? In the hot season, it's like that's when the plants are getting killed. It's like all day I've been getting cooked, and then it hits 4 o'clock, and it's like all the ambient heat is up, and then plus the direct sunlight just smacking them. And so you want to protect your house on the west side. I mean, you should always have a shade plan for the west side of any home. If you want to pay less for your AC bill and your electric bill, these are the strategies you got to take. It's one thing to have insulation in between the drywall, and the outer stucco. That's great. I'm sure that use all the finest of that technology offers in terms of insulation in your house. Cool. But if you also had a green vine on the outside of your house, and then also had a tree that is 10 feet away, allowing air to pass through the tree canopy in your house and blowing that hot air away, plus minimizing just the actual direct sunlight hitting your stucco and your roof tiles and all that, now you're talking. So, you know, using these, especially in the West, that's a big deal, and the South as well. So South side is always going to be a big one because, you know, that's where a lot of the heat comes in. We love using deciduous trees on the South side because they offer the benefit of shade in the hot season, and then allowing kind of the passive solar coming through in the cool season. So when the sun is low on the horizon, especially if you have a south-facing backyard, or really if that's your front yard, whatever, allowing that heat to come in and warm your house up. Because a lot of us kind of bitch out and turn the heater on here in the summertime, but if you actually
turn the heater on,
you turn the heat on in your house because it gets a little cold for a couple months here.
In the summer or in the winter?
In the winter, I'm sorry,
okay.
In the winter, I'm sorry, in the winter time here, so that if you can have that, if you can have direct sunlight entering your house in the cool season,
right.
Through leafless trees that also pop out, boom, all of a sudden are these beautiful shade monsters in the hot season.
Yeah.
Then you benefit from the sun in the maximum way. So South and the West are the big ones, and then planting your more sensitive stuff on the east side of your yard. Morning sun is gentler, you know. The air temperatures are cooler in the morning because you've had the whole night to cool down, even though, you know, that's not happening in the city. It's still hot as hell at 6 in the morning in central Phoenix.
Because
so,
like all the construction materials like absorb the...
Yeah, and you know, exactly. The cinder block walls, which are so common in Phoenix, they hold on to that heat. If they've just been cooking all day long, by the time 5 a.m. rolls around and next morning, it hasn't even released all the heat from yesterday.
Yeah.
So then 3 months of this happening, by the end of the summer, it's just like we live in this sweltering hot box.
In the winter, that's great for tropicals.
Yeah, exactly.
You keep your tropicals nice and warm.
Right. But, you know, we want to, again, covering hardscapes is a vital part of this, reducing the heat island in our cities. And there are neighborhoods around town that do better than others. You know, we have one not too far from here, right off Higley Road, that even though there wasn't native plants and it's a lot of grass and all that, but they have a huge shade canopy everywhere using these ash trees. Again, it's, you know, I'm not saying it's the greatest design, but just the idea of shade canopy, it's definitely cooler in there, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So, and again, we're seeing that as like neighborhood level. Like, you know, it's one thing to do it at one house. You keep it cooler, but like if you had 50 houses together, then you could create really a bubble that is where cool air can stay there and not, you know, So there's a vision there that we could really we could change things here. Like we could change Phoenix to make it way more resilient to these insane summers that we get.
There's two things coming up for me right now. One is this idea of like measuring our work. Like one of our outcomes for clients could be, or just anybody that we partner with, is like, can we get you to 0 AC usage in the summertime?
Yeah, right.
That'd be crazy.
I mean, and I would say like in cooler, most of the world does not live with AC. I mean, pretty much the vast majority of humanity that lives next to the equator right now don't have AC. We are living still in somewhat of a bubble. Obviously, that's changing more and more, and there's more air conditioners in the world than there used to be. But there's still a lot of people that are living this way already, you know, and we could do even though we have this technology, we can minimize its usage, because obviously it's a huge toll on our power consumption here. And if we could create these better environments, if we can minimize that, the benefits are just massive. So just anecdotally, to be able to just enjoy the space that we live in more and more. You know, we live in the desert. We got to learn to adapt to live here. And most of us come from other places.
Yeah.
Almost all of us are first or second generation desert dwellers. We got to learn from the past. You know, we got to learn from people who've lived in deserts throughout time in, you know, that human history. Incorporating kind of even this indigenous wisdom. I mean, a lot of what we're doing with irrigation and, you know, earthworks, passive rainwater systems, this is the original industry of people who've lived here. The irrigation is the original industry of the Hohokam 1,000 years ago, creating these incredible canal systems all throughout town, moving water, you know, incorporating systems that can handle the good rain years, you know, so that when we have the bad rain years, because they knew that it wasn't always going to be good, that these systems could take in the good, so that we can have a buffer for the low years. So, and that's what a lot of even at a micro level at our clients' homes, that we're building these passive rainwater systems, these basin systems that where, you know, we're in the good rain years, we're pumping thousands and thousands of gallons of water into the land, right where you're at, that when the next year, maybe we're only getting 2 inches of rain that year, we're in a bit of a, you know, drought season, that we still got moisture down below. And so
we're banking that rainwater in the soil.
Exactly. It's you know, these basins are kind of like underground tanks in a way. So yeah. So it's using kind of this knowledge that we already have to create the most optimal desert living situation, and maximizing resources as much as possible.
Where do you think, what did I want to ask you? Let me check the...
Hey, there's like freaking pterodactyls flying over top of us. Some of these herons and stuff, like, whoa.
This is what I wanted to ask you. So, why do you think, like, Tucson, I guess, has a few rainwater harvesting companies that you could call up, get an estimate, get a design, and hire to not just put gutters on your house, but like design a rainwater harvesting system. Why is Galaxy Gardens the only the only installer in Phoenix? Like, what is that about?
I think it speaks more to the culture of each of the cities, you know, the predominant culture. I mean, Phoenix is such a big city. We have every type of person in the world. You know, there's a micro culture every micro culture almost in the world probably exists in some part of Phoenix, right? So it's a big city. So I'm not trying to overly paint with a broad brush, right?
Yeah.
But in general, the predominant culture of Tucson has been more of a environmental culture, you know. I mean, I'm not trying to get into politics, but, you know, the left-leaning people tend to be more environmentally conscious, in my experience. But with that said, I think that right-leaning people tend to be more, what's the word? Like prepper-minded, okay? Like family sustainability, right? Like, we got to grow some food, baby, in case, you know, in case the government goes against us or whatever, right? It's each side of the political spectrum has a strength, if you will. And Phoenix which has been predominantly more right-wingy and left, and Tucson's been predominantly left-wingy, historically speaking. So I think that in the other one, not only that, I mean, that's one part of it, but the other part is Phoenix they're the first at the tap, you know, the grandfather water rights of the state. You know, Phoenix, Scottsdale, these cities, they get the first drink, and then everybody else gets to drink thereafter. That includes Tucson. Yeah. So Tucson's kind of been downstream. The power lies in Phoenix, you know, and so they've had to adapt to less water, and in some ways that has created innovation, and that's why, you know, Brad Lancaster types. He's not the only one. I mean, he wrote the book, but shoot, there's so many people down in Tucson that are really been pioneering all this, and because of the restraints that they had to deal with, I think this innovation has really come forth. Plus that predominant culture of we love the land, we love the environment, and we want we want to save the water, we want to save the rivers, that you get from more of a the left political spectrum, which is awesome. That's great, and that's kind of why that's happened. Now we're getting it here in Phoenix now, partially a lot because we're more of a purple city now. We've gotten politically, we're kind of more purple than we are just pure red like it used to be. So now we're getting more of these, like we're seeing a lot of the cities around Phoenix, Tempe, Phoenix, all of them really, but they're really spearheading the water movement, trying to get this rolling at a city level, and which is fantastic to see. It's really great.
Yeah.
I've been blessed enough to be a teacher for the watershed management group based out of Tucson, teaching classes with the cities of Phoenix all around, and trying to push this knowledge out in terms, all this rainwater harvesting, everything we're talking about basically in a curriculum form. And so it's starting to happen, and we're getting more. And then not only that, just social media, YouTube, we're all being able to see all the best stuff of the world now. And so even in places like Phoenix, people are wanting this, Also, I think in general, like we're all feeling the angst of the world and the instability of the world that we live in and the systems that we are beholden to, that we are seeking more autonomy and more resiliency at a more local level. So people, here are calling us because they want a rain tank because, they're worried they're just worried about the world. Yeah. I mean, kind of more that prepper mentality. And to be honest, I think that's somewhat of a healthy way to think of it. The Boy Scout in you, like I always say, I'm like a libertarian socialist. I want to act as if it all depends on me, but I want to work with my community and help to build together. I'm a socialist at a local level. And I think that's the beautiful blend. And I think this permaculture in general is a beautiful encompassing of that. This kind of this independence, if you will, of from the system in a sense, that libertarian mindset, and then also working together as a community to lift all boats.
And caring for the Earth's natural systems.
Absolutely.
Which is like sort of historically or like stereotypically more of a left wingy thing. It's like, care about the Earth, save the Earth. That's what one of the things that attracted me to permaculture the most, specifically like regenerative practices. I started to realize that, like sustainability itself was this kind of like, sustainability is kind of painted blue.
Yes.
And you talk sustainability to people on one side of the political spectrum and they're gonna tune you out.
Yep.
But when you talk about regeneration, it seems like it just, and with, design systems like permaculture, it sits right at the sort of political center. It's like everybody is served when we just optimize how the Earth already works.
That's it. Bingo, man. Yeah, I mean, the dream in my mind is like to render the political system kind of pointless somehow, and or just way less power than it already has. And again, that it's all encompassing, And I would say even a lot of the younger generation, left and right, do have a much more kind of land ethos or a land. They're land conscientious. The guy in mind is beating, with a lot of the younger people, even on the right, as well as the left. But hopefully we can, we always talk about the divide and conquer mentality of the rulers and keeping us compartmentalized like that. And I always see the poly mind, where the raise in consciousness is to be able to see the truths in both and to see that each of those kind of political whatever exist in each of us, you know, like I'm a collectivist and I'm an individualist. I don't want to just be hemmed into one
Totally.
thing, you know. I'm very purple, you know, and
there's
again,
reasons for collectivism, collective thinking, and there's reasons for individualism, individual thinking.
Exactly. And, you know, I even see the political spectrum as, you know, the left seems to be more progressive thinking. The right tends to be more the traditions, right? The traditions of our fathers, but we don't want to also be handcuffed forever by that, right? Like just because my grandpa did it this way doesn't mean there's not a better way.
Yeah.
But it's also saying, you know what, grandpa came to this conclusion for a reason. He wasn't a total idiot. So not throwing the baby out the bathwater, but also being able to be part of evolution, you know, to evolve, to create the new ways of doing things that are so very beneficial while still holding on to the things that have served us for many generations. And it's always kind of the left-right paradigm where it's only like it's tradition only or progressivism only. And if you only go one way or the other, you're kind of, to me, you're either completely ungrounded or you're just like, you're almost too grounded, you know? So it's trying to find that happy medium. And I think that's the change in consciousness, is that, you know? So, I mean, I know maybe we're getting into more of like a spiritual, through a spiritual lens here.
Let's do it.
Okay, well, I mean, you know, and I think that's what we're being called to do in the world in general, in all aspects of our world. How do we make this world a better place? And everyone's going to find their particular part of the fucked up world that they're going to try to help ameliorate. And that is going to, and part of that is bringing the higher consciousness into each of these fields. You know, we're talking specifically about the land, and, you know, I argue that's not the most important, but, you know, how do we do that where it is this, it is this blending of all the, of both of the, you know, the forward thinking and the tradition, you know. And that's what I love about permaculture. It takes in all the methods of the indigenous, but then infusing the technologies that we have now, you know. Using a smart timer to manage your irrigation system, using a polyurethane water tank to extend your rainy season, using, you know, aluminum gutters to capture all the water from your roof and to be able to hold on to that water. You know, using, you know, PVC as something to move water throughout the land and to, you know, so we are, but also, you know, using the plants that, maybe incorporating some of these Sonoran desert plants as part of your food forest. You know, prickly pear fruit tastes amazing. Wolfberries taste absolutely incredible. Well, sometimes they're a little sour, but they're very good for you. Hackberries, we were talking about the desert hackberry, another native plant that is food abundant and also helps build microclimate. So plants that are checking many boxes and they're being potentially watered by your, you know, technological solutions. So, you know, this beautiful blend of the two, and that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like I said, many things attracted me and kind of lit my spark about permaculture as I started to learn about it. And it does seem to be like the most ideal, sort of like the most harmonious system, spiritually speaking, pragmatically speaking. It's like the point is to emulate nature. And that's not to say, like you said, you know, we don't want to necessarily regress technologically and go back to like sun up to sundown manual labor, but like the more we learn from and emulate nature, and sort of augment her natural systems in the ways that we can, like you said, with these materials, with innovative, you know, processes that, or even like thinking about like pruning trees, right? Like that is a critical activity for achieving the types of outcomes that we want without harming the
Right.
tree without harming the earth.
Right.
If you just let fruit trees and bushes grow completely wild, you know, you're going to get teeny tiny peaches. The birds
Right.
aren't going to mind.
Right.
The wildlife is going to eat those peaches.
Yeah.
But we want nice big juicy peaches, so we got to tend
Yes.
a little bit more carefully.
Well, humans are land managers, you know, and sometimes we do it poorly, but history says, though, we've been managing land for thousands of years. Even, you know, we often think of the indigenous here in America as just, you know, hunting and fishing and that's it, or, you know, nomadic people, but like we have found that they were managing forests. Truly, I mean, literally, in a sense, food forests, and they were managing even that, potentially pruning them, fire management, literally using fire intentionally to create growth cycles. And so humans have just been a part of this forever. You can't take us, or well, not forever, but meaning, you know, since we've been on the earth, we've been a part of the web, and we've been a part of the management process, and I think we're given this, we have these superpower brains that are just fantastic, and we have the ability to, you know, use so much of this knowledge that we've gotten from science and from all the studying that we've been doing, especially for the last couple hundred years, codifying the world and categorizing it and understanding them, and then kind of bringing it back to kind of just more like your nature intuition. So using these hard science combined with just like, if you feel it, if you literally meditate in the land long enough, you can receive like a wisdom that you can't necessarily just read in a book.
Yeah.
Like when you're working with the land and you're in your garden a lot and you just kind of see the cycles of the plant, you can feel them almost, that I kind of know it's what you're asking me. I'm always asking the plants and trees, like, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. You know, give me some inspiration here to know exactly what will optimize you. And yeah, I know it sounds hippy dippy and woo wooey, but there's definitely something to it. And I think you can tap into something that is beyond anything that could have been, you know, done with science experiments.
Yeah.
And but combining the two together again is just we can be these like cosmic gardeners.
Yeah.
We could revegetate the earth in such a way that the earth could be more abundant with humans than without us, hypothetically speaking. Even though, you know, especially these last couple 100 years specifically, where we've kind of chewed it all up and we've shown what a parasite that we can be.
Yeah, we're just rolling out the hardscape everywhere.
Yeah, man, I know. Paving paradise, putting up a parking lot, destroying ecosystems, destroying old growth forests, you know, anyway, the list goes on. We've all watched the documentaries. It's a sad story, man. And it can be debilitating in terms of feeling hopelessness. You're like 98% of all the old growth forests are gone. Holy shit, man. It makes you just want to sit and cry, right? It's like watching the worst scene in Avatar over and over again, and just like watching that tree, you know, like, man. Just so devastating, right? But the potential of humanity is this other thing that's so awesome. And so we could just, you know, this mesquite tree that we're sitting under, if it just, you know, it'll drop thousands of seeds every year, and a handful of them will germinate. And then a handful of those will ever come to full fruition as a tree, right? But technically, you and me as a human, we could pick up every one of these seeds, put it in a pot, you know, and literally come and baby. We could have 90% germination rates, and then, you know, you could sit and baby them and like have 90% success rate on plantings of them, right? So we could, like, you know, 1000x the germination rate of a seed, even to the natural, whatever nature's going to do, all just by itself. Well, again, we're nature, but anyway, you know, you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So
you can improve the outcome.
You can just, that concept alone, just, you know, then you start getting into watershed restoration through earthworks and things like that, and you just realize our potential. It could be this just most beautiful life generator. And as a true land steward, if we could humble ourselves enough spiritually not to be these maniacs that want to conquer everything, and be more like a humble servant. Like, again, I really believe it. Maybe I did too many mushrooms or something, but I really believe I'm a servant of the plants, you know, like I'm here to serve you guys. How can I get this? How can I do my part to benefit y'all? Because y'all benefit us in a big way.
And the more we care for them, the more we care for the earth, the more she takes care of us.
Man, the hippies have always been right. Let's admit it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I feel like that's not even like that's not a hippy dippy statement. I think that's literally a provable thing. I mean, ecosystems, healthy ecosystems just are beneficial to every living thing in the web. And that is especially true for humans. So, you know, ecosystem revitalization is, I see it as kind of the number one thing. Like, that is where we got to start. We got to go back to the building blocks of life. Like, how do we escape this kind of this planned future of where the corporations rule everything and we're all just beholden to whatever their plan is? You know, I see the opposite of that is we're gonna have to get back to ecosystem revitalization at a community level, and we can potentially again create that buffer zone where their impact of the maniacs up at the top is so much less now. You know, and that is just such a, it's the ultimate political solution, and again,
self-sufficiency.
Yes, and localism,
like communal self-sufficiency,
and localism for not just the humans, but for the butterflies.
Yes,
you know, and everything up and down the spectrum, from the microbes in the soil. Again, as us as soil builders, as our primary, as a gardener, that's our primary practice, is soil building. Let the plants will do the rest. And then all the way up to large mammals and the mountain lion, and then even us humans, you know, and that's the world many of us want to live in. The majority, most people listen to this, maybe there's a few who think we're a bunch of wacky hippie guys, but like in general, most people agree with this vision. They want this. We yearn for it. We all, everyone has this little heaven in their head. Like, if anybody from whatever political spectrum, I say, close your eyes and what does your heavenly heaven look like? I'll bet there's trees there. I'll bet there's green things growing. I'll bet there's like food, grapes you're pulling off, and you know what I mean? It's like, if that, happy families, and you know, the butterflies are flying, and you know, all that kind of stuff.
You're not in traffic.
I know, right?
Like going to a job.
Or you're going into the Fry's grocery store, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I'm grateful for the fries,
of course.
But at the same time, that there's some part of that we all can inherently feel there's something off with it. Yeah. And then when you really get into what's off about it and how destructive these systems are, and you know, the landslide of destruction that much of these systems are creating, we got to do something about it, you know. And I think this is the best way, and it starts in your home garden. I mean, I think the home garden is the portal to your own reconnection to earth and to God, and to whatever that even means for you, whatever God even means for you, whatever that is, that which is be above us, that it would just creation. However this got here, we all can honor that. And your own garden is a beautiful way to connect with that and to honor that, and then to receive wisdom in ways that it's not from a YouTube video, it's just through the quietness of your garden. And through connecting in those ways, man, it's just so vital for your soul. And in many ways, we've tried to create these worlds to avoid the drudgery of manual labor, but we've gone so far that it's kind of, now we're entering the WALL-E phase, where we're all going to be in those, you know, obese and flying around. Yeah, you know, like that's the other end. So it's either human drudgery of manual labor from sun up to sundown, to, you know, the other thing where we just completely lose ourselves. And so we gotta have to find the middle ground here, like use technology to take the drudgery out, but also don't become weak. You know, and still got to connect
Yeah.
with the source of life here, and the soil and the air and the land and the you know, all that. That's so vital. I mean, we for sure have gone too far away, and now that's why it's so easy to just justify the destruction of ecosystems, because it's happening over there. It's not, if the ecosystem destruction for your goods and services was happening right next to you, we'd probably stop it.
Well, that's
and
why
probably
people
change the way that we're doing things.
That's why people are getting all up in arms about the AI data centers, right? Every time an AI data center or whatever, a big data center goes up 15 million square feet or whatever, and the water pressure's going down in the nearby town, like now it's hitting close to home.
I know.
And now people are really starting to taste it.
I know. Shoot. And and AI is such a helpful tool too.
I know.
So, you know, it could be such a accelerator of education in order to, like, it could be like a cliff notes on how to level yourself up very quickly, but also it's destroying the water table.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I'm hoping we can figure that out. But this data center debate it's a good point, because it is close to home, and it does make you go then, well, if I'm against the data center, should I be using AI at all? Or is there potentially going to be a better way to do this? I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, we definitely got to start thinking about our behavior and how it is, all the ripple effects that it does create. That's why localism to me is just it feels like again, one of the best solutions on how to reel this back, you know?
So I want to ask you about that. All the devices are cooperating. Love it. A lot of people that follow us on social media, a lot of people who are interested in permaculture, interested in growing their own food, in these types of things, not only are renting the house or whatever that they live in, but may not have, like, maybe they're in an apartment. Maybe they, landlord is forbidding them from doing anything outside, whatever the situation may be. If you were renting in an apartment with, maybe a tiny balcony, how would you practice permaculture? I mean, maybe, like, fine, you have like a little herb garden box on your balcony, whatever, but like, what else can people in that situation do?
Okay, well, of course you can plant out your patio, right? Like, get a tree, get a dwarf citrus tree and put it in a nice pot, and maybe get some lemons. I mean, I don't know, just that's something. And then also something that even just help get a little shade on your back porch or whatever, right? Of course you could be doing the window planters and ledge planters and things like that. So there's all these kind of micro solutions, and again, the farms that have the highest production per square foot are micro farms. This isn't these 150 acre plots that are like producing the most amount of food per area. It's these kind of urban plots that are actually producing a lot density. per square foot are producing the most. So you can grow things in very small spaces, is what I'm trying to say. Now, the other thing is to get into, I got into this in my last place in Gilbert, where I started guerrilla planting. I mean, and I was a renter too. So I planted my property out. Now, granted, I do this for a living. I get, I was honing my craft by I don't care if I don't own this place. I'm just going to plant it out.
Totally.
I'm a Johnny Appleseed. Like, so what? If I'm going to plant some stuff, I'll die tomorrow. I want to, who cares if I owned it or not, and hopefully at least some percentage of what I planted eventually is enjoyed by somebody. Mm-hmm. I've gotten into guerrilla planting at the local parks. I would go in the middle of the night and freaking pop trees in the ground. I mean, so I've done that. I mean, and it feels good. It does. It feels awesome, man. That's a form of rebellion in a way. Like, screw you, HOA, and nobody even notices for the most part, you know. So, and it's been very beneficial, and it just it scratches the itch. You know, a lot of us want to. It's one thing I notice, if you just don't have any access to land and you're studying permaculture, eventually you just burn out by watching permaculture videos without ever practicing it, right? Like, or anything that would be the truth. You know, if you're studying about whatever you're studying about, but if you never get a chance to like have a go at it, you're going to probably just fizzle out and get uninterested because you can't advance yourself. So if you're many in the younger generation have no access to land ownership now, and that's a deep topic, but of course it's the very, very pressing issue in our world. But I would just say don't lose so much hope that you just never do anything. Like, land ownership doesn't necessarily absolutely encumber you from planting. There's so many plants that don't even cost hardly any money. You know, moringa is an awesome one, right? You can get free moringa seeds, and even if you're renting in a place, just freaking put them in the ground, and you could have a tree in a year. At least while you're renting, might as well have something giving you shade.
You don't have to put it on irrigation.
Exactly. Just go hand water it. You don't have to do drip systems and pay all this money. So there's ways to just garden with very cheaply. You know, native plants. We've been talking about them. In the summer during monsoon season, you'll see all these little mesquite shoots popping out, right? Go dig them out and go plant them in your yard. You know, it's free. It's a free tree. So there's ways to do this that you can plant without, just for the sake of planting. You know, just because you love the earth and you want to see some bird come nest in your yard. Cool. Yeah. You just need some shade while you're renting at this place. Let's do it, and you've been a great example of that where you live, fighting the good fight. I know you've had battles, and of course there's a lot of negative to, that house that I planted out in Gilbert, they bulldozed half of it, dude, if not more. But it's kind of that spiritual lesson of impermanence. Yes, you see the monks doing those sand art, take every little sand and make these incredible mosaics of these colored sands, and then at the end they just wipe it all away and it's gone, right? Even though my heart broke when I heard that they bulldozed half the plants that I planted at my original house, Galaxy Gardens headquarters #1. Yet I still don't regret doing it. You know what I mean?
Because you learned from it. You were engaged during that time, and you and your family got to benefit from it while you were
there. Exactly. It was awesome. Yeah. So, and there'll be enough cases where maybe they won't bulldoze, and it's stuff that will, if enough of us do this, eventually, it's like guerrilla planting in your neighborhood. Yeah. They might even rip them out, but if you, I was just going and buying $25 eucalyptus trees at Home Depot, $25 for a little fun. I could go down to the casino and spend $25 or go buy that, and I go back to that park still, and this freaking tree is 40 feet tall now.
That you planted?
Yeah,
Guerrilla planted in the middle of the night. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's not on your, it's just in a big lawn area where the whole park drains into this great place for a big shady eucalyptus. Even though it's not native, just a beautiful shader. So this is the way to kind of circumnavigate the world that we're living in. Like, we can't be paralyzed by the constraints that, especially for the younger generation, where land ownership is so difficult. There's ways around this, and I'm trying to do that. I mean, I'm a victim of it too, and I'm working, where I'm at right now, working in agreement with the landowner to be there for a long time, and to just get creative, get aggressive. And start talking. If you have a vision for something, to whoever owns the land, a lot of the boomer generation that owns all the land, they don't got the great ideas nor the energy in their bones to develop this property anymore. But if you get a young person who's been exposed to some of this kind of education, and then also got a little juice in their bones, ready to, that can actually make stuff happen. There's a lot of older people who are owners that aren't, who are good people and who are like, wow, that's a great idea. Let's go. Yeah, I'm into this. This is cool, man. Yeah. I want to do it. So there's ways. We're just gonna have to get creative on how we do this, but don't die without planting, baby. You know, if you're someone who connects like this, don't be paralyzed by it. And you did it. You started mulching. You started planting. You don't own any of it, and
it's all gone now.
And it doesn't mean you're
In the
gonna
easement.
keep going though, man.
Yeah.
You're gonna keep going.
Of course.
You're not gonna stop. So even though we had you and me have had a couple failure stories.
Yeah.
Overall though, where it's max beneficial. Plus the confrontation like that you recently had with your landlord.
No, not the landlord. My landlord's fantastic. It's the apartment complex
the apartment,
owners
okay.
of that easement.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those people, the confrontation, there's still some confrontation is good.
Yeah.
You know, got those people thinking.
Yes.
Even though they still bulldozed it, you know, it's getting the conversation happening.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's like resistance to just this autopilot of the way
Exactly.
developers think, and I just want minimum liability, and I just clear all this shit out. I don't care.
Yeah.
That mentality's got to be challenged.
Yep.
So I commend you for that. So
Thank you.
if enough of us young people are willing to do that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm kind of middle. I'm not even so young anymore, but I'm somewhere in the middle. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna be tossing seed bombs over the fence when they put the fence in for as long as that fence is up, because I think we will be able to get the city to take it down, but who knows?
Yeah.
Nicholas Iman at the Phoenix Desert Nursery, Phoenix Desert Center. I was asking him if he had ever made seed bombs, because I know he works with clay. He's made a couple of like clay, like chimeneas on his property.
Yeah.
And so he's actually he's working on making native seed bombs for
Cool.
some of the annuals that sort of take most easily. And so we're gonna be,
Heck yeah.
handing those out or selling them or however we do it, and
Yeah.
just like you said, guerrilla planting, like toss them into the strips in between the road, like along Thomas Road in Scottsdale. There's some cool prickly pear and stuff, but there's so much opportunity to just grow hella wildflowers and all that.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But let me ask you this. So planting and like growing plants, that's like the thing that everybody thinks about with permaculture. But as you and I know,
Yeah.
permaculture is so much bigger. I mean, there's literally it's a set of principles about resources, about waste, about design thinking. And so, if somebody is renting an apartment, okay, they've got their couple of herb boxes, maybe they did some seed bombs throughout their complex, and the landscapers are weed whacking it all, whatever.
Yep.
But what about composting? What about rainwater? What about how else can somebody in that position, what would you do in that position?
Well, you brought up egg production. They just passed a law this past year saying that HOAs cannot prohibit you from having a flock of 6 chickens, at least. I think half dozen.
It's like the same
I think that's the minimum.
Same as marijuana plants, right?
Yeah.
6 and 6.
So you can get your cannabis and your chickens, and they can't come and bust your chops about it. But that's something that could, if you had to move, could easily be kind of like transportable. You could bring your birds with you to your next spot, those kind of things. So again, a lot of people when they're in a renting situation feel like they can't alter the space that they're in, which I would say that's not necessarily true. And if you're there, you might as well dig in, especially if you know you're gonna be there for a little bit. And if you have a landlord who's cool with it, I mean, oftentimes you just tell them like, hey, I want to do this. So you cool? Yeah, cool. That's fine. Or you might have
if it's like a private landlord.
It's a private landlord. I know, right? Well, I did mine, and I just didn't ask permission. I just freaking did it.
Yeah.
And I lived there long enough that no one even remembered what it used to look like. So I was like, what are you gonna do about it? 10 years later, it was completely different looking. So. Anyway, other things that can be done. Well, you can always container plant, especially if you have a little more yard, you can always be container planting. You were asking me though, non-planting solutions. Well, there's always rain barrels that could be popped up in a little corner, even though you don't want to invest in a gutter system on a house that you don't own.
Or even an apartment that you can't put gutters on.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's always little corners of roofs that are where more water comes than others.
Waterfalls.
Yeah, and there's always opportunities for the bucket brigade of just putting buckets everywhere, collecting your water, then watering your plants with that. Potentially getting a couple 50-gallon drums. Maybe there is a gutter, and you can just hook up to that with a 50-gallon drum, and kind of these micro options.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are many different ways that you could do that. Soil building, composting. Composting can be done at a community level too. If you want to get real frisky and be like, hey, neighbors, give me all your food scraps. I'll take them. I'm doing a little compost operation over here. You want to, you'd be surprised. A lot of people will be into it. Okay, shoot, I'll start collecting my stuff and give it to you.
Yeah.
And you can create these little fertility factories at an urban level that, if you're going to be gardening in pots or things that not necessarily where you're that compost would be very beneficial for, especially if you're going to do a lot of raised bed, container planting, that kind of stuff could be a compost operation. It definitely could be incorporated.
Yeah, like an indoor worm bin too. If you've got a little space, like maybe like a 2x2 foot area where you could put a worm bin.
Yep.
Boom, you're generating worm castings, you're keeping kitchen scraps out of the landfill.
Absolutely.
And then you've got freaking pure gardening gold.
That's it.
What do you do with it? Okay, you put it in your own little plants. Maybe you have more than you know what to do with. Like you give it to neighbors or whatever.
Yep.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, man. And it's a great way to connect with your neighbors. I mean, even growing saplings of some variety, germinating moringa seeds, and then just put them in little freaking, hey, call me up. I'll give you some free pots. Put them in there and, grow 20 of them and just start handing them out. Dude, put this in your yard, man. You want a tree, and this is a superfood. You eat these leaves, you're going to get all these nutrients and minerals. And, oh, cool, thanks, man. It takes full heat, full sun, blah, blah, blah. Awesome plant. Whatever kind of thing. It's a great way it's all free, man. None of that costs hardly any money. It doesn't, and none of this stuff requires. Yeah. It's kind of why I kind of poo-poo the idea of like, oh, if you're poor, then you can't grow things. I'm just like, I don't see that. Again, we're sitting in a place this was all just wild grown, basically. Just kind of grew by seeds. They just planted the water in a sense, and then things just started growing. So
really, even these massive
maybe
mesquites.
Some of them are planted, but a lot of it's just been seed expanded.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is it don't cost anything to plant a seed, really. It can be free. Yeah. And there's ways to get around this kind of land issue that that we can still live our lives and live kind of these visions that we see without necessarily, I got a mortgage payment here, so now I can finally plant a fruit tree.
Right.
And there's cheap fruit trees. I mean, we're doing this bare root sale. It's $30 for a tree. Yeah. Even if you don't own the place you're at, you can't afford $30 to put into the land that you're living on. If you're going to be there for 3 years, a $30 mulberry tree will be it'll just bring you a lot of joy. Yeah. It'll be a worthy investment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the way that I look at like practicing permaculture, even when you don't have your own land to build soil on, to plant in, to harvest rainwater into or whatever, is like, in what ways can I capture and generate resources, right? So like generating the worm castings, how can I reduce waste, especially from like organic waste, like the kitchen scraps? Yeah. Another thing that's coming up is like, I was watching one of the paragraphic features that I was telling you about when we talked on the weekend about this like middle-aged couple that like kids went to college and they moved out into somewhere in Arizona, and they run their entire permaculture farm. The electricity, all of it, comes from a solar panel that is about as big as this like recording space that we have here. Yeah. Just boom, facing the south. And then they've got it hooked up to, the battery system and whatever. And that's it. And he said, we haven't had a power outage in 3 years.
Nice.
We've been, I've been conditioned to think of solar as you got to put all these panels up on your roof. You got to cover your roof with solar panels. But what if And with solar technology dropping in cost, increasing in efficiency, what if one of the ways that people can practice permaculture, right, the capturing and use of more renewable resources, is by buying, maybe it's $150 to $250, whatever. Maybe you got to spend like $500, whatever, if that's accessible to you. But like some sort of like home personal solar energy system. And then if you can like basically, yeah, what do you think about that? Like you power anything that's not, appliances hooked up to the walls or whatever. Like you power your TV, your computer, these kinds of things just from like a freaking solar panel this big facing south on your apartment
and
balcony.
even if you're a renter, that could be, you pick that up and bring it with you.
Exactly.
It goes wherever you're going to go. So yeah, that is a great way to look at. I mean, I had a neighbor in my house in Gilbert, just a couple of houses. He was basically doing that. He was like running a bunch of stuff off his house in this little mini solar panel in his backyard, feeling like he's like a rebel, kind of sticking it to the electric company. And I think he was kind of doing it, they don't like when you do it, but yeah, man, these are all, again, forms of, in a sense, rebellion, a beautiful rebellion though. Yeah. These are those kind of little things that we can do to create, well, also like it's an asset. That solar system is an asset for you. And if you, even though it's not necessarily like I got a mortgage from a bank kind of asset, although I guess that's maybe not an asset, but it's still something, especially for young people in this world. That's a system worth investing in, that you could potentially be lowering your electricity costs wherever you're at, and then it can be mobile to something until you can find your place you can root in a little better. Yeah, I think the more we generate our own resources, the more we capture our own resources. Like I like to ask the question, if 1,000-foot impenetrable glass walls were suddenly just sprouted all around the city you live in, now what? Can you not just survive, but thrive as a community, whether it's a 3-4 million person city like Phoenix, or a few thousand to a few tens or hundreds of thousands, but like if we eliminated the ability to import your freaking bananas at the grocery store, right? You can only eat from what was grown within these few square miles or these few hundred square miles. Like it all has to come from and go back to your neighborhood, your little block of 2, 3, 4 neighborhoods. Like, I think that's the question that gets people really thinking, like, yeah, how would we accomplish that? Well, I think currently, as it stands right now in 2026, we are extremely vulnerable, meaning COVID showed this to us. We're literally operating on a 5-continent global supply chain that creates the world we live in. The essential goods, our food, our medicine, things like that are coming from far away. And most, if you turn Phoenix into a gigantic biodome, millions of people would die. If we did it right this second, we are far from that sustainability that you're talking about. And that's pretty much true for probably every major city in America. But we're very vulnerable to potential disasters to our supply chain. Even at a national supply chain, we have so much of our produce and food are coming out of California and Mexico that, I don't know, what if there was some gigantic earthquake, or, we are so arrogant the way we live, thinking nothing's ever going to happen. And you really look at, the history of the earth and you go, shit does happen, man. Big stuff, potential cataclysm kind of stuff that, given our current model, we believe, millions of people would die because we're so dependent on this 5-continent global supply chain that benefits a very small few people. And that's what we're all coming to terms with. And again, this is why let COVID be our example of it, but let it be our motivator to change this. I mean, my goal for the world would be very localized supply chains, that every city in America, like 80% of all essential goods are coming from within some short circle, that if some cataclysm happened here, yeah, maybe a couple of communities are destroyed, but like all the communities on Earth aren't destroyed because we're not all so interdependent on each other, like the way we are now. And that's why, again, the local movement, the localized, shortening our supply chains it's going to be the big goal for the future generations here. You can see what happens when you have this small group of people running it all, and how beholden we are to it and how just devastating it is. And I mean, the beautiful part about the internet is, despite the fact that we get so much, you get all the information, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the good information is in there, the real info. We have more knowledge than we've ever had as a people to collectively rise up to create, to say no more. We don't want to play in your sandbox there, Lord and Masters. We're going to, obviously we can rise up and fight them, but we could also rise up and just create subsystems that eventually become the bigger system, that if we can kind of isolate ourselves from the model that they want to create, that we can slowly will gain more and more power ourselves and more resiliency. And, God forbid these kind of disaster situations happen, that life would be preserved, and it's vital. It's really, really, really important. This isn't just like a hobby thing this isn't just a hobby where we're trying to wouldn't it be cool to have an apple tree outside your house? I mean, that is cool, but there's a way bigger vision here that goes all the way up to, the rulers and the masters of the world kind of guys, that this is a solution against. So I mean, I just can't stress it enough how important it is. We all probably need to get a little more serious about it, and a little more angry about what's been done and how beholden we are to it. And no, dude, I'm not going to support that anymore. I'm not going to support these kind of Babylonian systems that want to prey on everybody and again benefit a small few at the expense of so many, and especially at the expense of the entire land itself. That's got to stop. We can't have an economic system based on ecosystem destruction.
Right.
Come on, man. We're getting to a place where there's been so much of the ecosystem destruction that it could create cascading destruction that potentially could risk our future survival as a species. Yeah. So, and I know that seems grandiose, but it's important, man. This is really important stuff. Who knows when that threshold will be reached and, we start seeing that cascading. We pretty much are seeing it in certain parts of the world, but we got to get ahead of it, man. We got to start thinking even at a local level how we can do our part. And that literally starts at your house, because that's all you can control at first. And then maybe you could talk a neighbor into it, maybe some of your friends start doing it. And then, get the ball rolling in some way, shape, or form. I know it seems, trying to conquer the global supply chain, your food forest probably ain't I know it's a drop of the ocean that we're talking, but it's better than not putting any drop in or doing anything or just sitting on your couch in despair and hopelessness, and just fine, I'll just watch the next YouTube video, No, stop scrolling and, plant something, man. Start there. That's a great start.
So you said you have over 3 acres. You're working out a land deal with the owner of the land where you're living. You're focusing on mulberries, figs, peaches, and citrus.
As part of the agroforestry operation, yes.
As part of an overall agroforestry operation. And
There's
like,
other things as well, like animal systems that can be worked into that.
Yeah.
Some annual crops as well. But yes, a nursery, as you and me have talked about, you know, a small nursery operation. But yeah.
So you're like, would you say that like you're heading from career landscaper to rainwater harvester permaculturist to like farmer? Permaculture farmer?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I'm headed. I mean, well, you know, and in some ways I'm already doing it. You know, as you get into this, you as a land practitioner, I'm so blessed that people pay me that I get to practice all this, you know, and my practice is good enough that it's, you know, it's still it's worth the money, right? I mean, I still think even projects I did 3 years ago were worth the money that people invested, even though technically I was less of a practitioner than I am today. And in 3 years from now, I'm going to even be smarter, you know, like there's stuff I'm doing now that I won't do in 3 years from now because I'm going, there's a better way to do this. So, you know, in some ways people are paying for my evolution through these projects. But I do feel like, even though I love urban permaculture, and I think it's really vital because most of us live in urban settings, suburban or urban settings. So when we're living in small spaces, but I do feel like people like me who are really serious about it feel like I've been blessed to the opportunity to be on land, and I've also been blessed to been exposed to this education, and yeah, I just can't help myself but want to do that on bigger and bigger plots of land, you know? I mean, one day I would love to be a part of a 50-acre operation restoring a watershed, or a 50,000-acre project where we're restoring watershed, things like that. That I would love to, you know, one of the goals of my life is to potentially affect the most amount of land as possible. And to you know, nature is a momentum. Like there's a couple of variables that if you alter them, boom, it locks in, and boom, it revitalizes quickly. And just like we're talking again, I've brought it up many times already, just with this riparian preserve, how that, you know, humans do a couple of things and it kickstarts it the right way, and man, it regenerates quickly. A couple of good rainy years like we had this year, and man, stuff's growing all over the place, and you can get ecosystem to reestablish and to just take off in a different way. And that can also be true for kind of these human-centric, you know, this agroforestry model that I'm talking about. The perennial-based agriculture is something, again, that I'm very, you know, we're trying to move away from the monoculture, put one crop in a field and flood it out and
harvest it and till and start over. And
then the soil's all bare and exposed for half the year, that kind of model. We're trying to step away from that model to a polyculture model, and a perennial based, where, you know, forest based agriculture. And this is kind of the way we used to live. You know, many indigenous people for, you know, eons of time have lived that way, or more perennial based, you know, nut trees, fruit trees, these kind of systems for our food production, because they're less work. I mean, annual systems are very labor intensive. There's a lot of work to them, and they are, and at least the way we're mostly doing them, they're kind of land destroyers more than they are land enhancers. And perennial systems are way more regenerative to the land itself, and, you know, very positive to most of the web of life, and very high food producing for humans.
Yeah, more yielding.
Higher yields and
like lower inputs.
Exactly.
Higher outputs.
Boom. That's beautiful. And less based on petroleum, right? So this is, you know, the petroleum systems, big tractors and all that, it gets us locked into the, you know, the big monster system that's killing everything. So, and again, it's not to say that, you know, we've talked about it, like, it's not to say a tractor's all bad and anything that uses petroleum is bad. No, man, you know, you can, In fact, a tractor using petroleum can revitalize the land a lot quicker than even you and me could. If done the right, if you put that tractor to the right use. You know, like those swale systems that they did down in the Tucson area back in the 20s and 30s, during the kind of put people back to work movement during the Great Depression. They did all these swale systems down there, and it's crazy, these amazing desert oases that exist down there from those swales that they were making, just, you know, putting people to work, digging freaking huge, you know, swales with tractors back in the day.
Never even heard of this.
Yeah, I'll send you. Andrew Millison did a big thing about. He did a whole thing about it. So, you know, yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. What, I guess, what's your 20-year vision or whatever? Like, what's your vision for Galaxy Gardens, the rainwater harvesting permaculture landscape installation company, right? Because you're going towards farming and production on your land. Do you kind of see yourself like handing the reins over, or you
know, possibly. Of course, one person only has so much bandwidth, but for the time being, I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, this is like a decade-long vision here. Yeah. But you know, well, who's doing the work is not so much important to me as long as it's getting done. So part of my vision for the landscaping side, right? I hope we can help train our other landscape companies to do this. You and I have talked a lot about this. There aren't that many companies that are doing this kind of work who have the education experience. And now we're potentially where the demand is outpacing the supply of customers in Phoenix area who want this vision in their landscape, to landscape companies that actually know how to do it. Yeah. You know, and so I'd like to be a part of that. Doesn't have to benefit me financially at all. I mean, I hope Galaxy Gardens keeps doing this for many years to come, and I'll be at the helm of that for the immediate future. And yeah, maybe one day when all my mulberries are so big that I got to be home picking all them, I'll have my replacement in the landscape division in the future. But both are necessities. Local agriculture that's using these systems, and suburban houses that are at a home garden level are using these systems, at a micro level are using these systems, and then more macro as well, and everything in between, from all the way to the apartment patio to even bigger land that I'm talking. 3 acres sounds cool, but it's really peanuts. It's like tiny compared to the food needs we need. But as you and me have been exploring, there's a lot of land throughout a city that is being underutilized. And there's a lot of back 40s, on these kind of properties that, whether they're homeowners, people who own these acre lots around town that just nobody's doing anything on them. And they have flood irrigation rights, and all they're doing is just watering grass. Yep. That if you with a young person with the right vision who could come in and plant 200 fruit trees and put that flood irrigation water to local food production, that is just the best. Where again, minimal inputs, maximum outputs, tiny supply chain. We are where the consumer is. As opposed to trucking it up from central Mexico. Why aren't we using the space we have here to do that? And there's a lot of little pockets around town that have these land that is available. And you and me talk a lot about how we could create a vision to maximize that, and to partner with churches or schools or HOAs that kind of have these back 40s that are no one's doing anything with, that could be potentially brought in with someone with the vision. Yeah. You can see take agro. Oh my gosh.
Agritopia.
Agritopia. the farm that's there, Steadfast Farm here in Eastmark up in Mesa. These are neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods that have incorporated a farm into the neighborhood. Fantastic. Now, those neighborhoods are so successful, and everybody wants to live in those neighborhoods. Everybody, you know, the real estate has gone way up, you know, because that model is built into play, man. And I'd like to even take that model. I mean, those are very annual based model farming models, but like imagine even a little more on the perennial side and more on the rainwater, you know, factoring in all that. Man, now we're the good, better, best, you know, model of we're getting there, and we gotta scale this throughout our city. Any of these open areas that could be potentially brought into production. Just again, it's lacking vision more than anything, but it's also the people who own the land and people who own the money, connecting, you know, the most conscious of those people, because, you know, the unconscious probably ain't doing this, but there are conscious people who have land and have money, and combining them with some young guys who, again, got the juice in the bones to do it and have the understanding and awareness of how to pull this off. Yeah, man, we could just, man, you can extrapolate that vision in your mind of how we could see Phoenix in the future. You know, 20 years from now, we have a bunch of you know, agroforestry operations going down, or all these citrus trees being grown by even just homeowners to incorporate that citrus into a marketable food, or, you know, food markets right here locally. Why the hell are we bringing in citrus from anywhere else? Why are you buying citrus from California when there's fruit rotting on the ground all over town?
I know.
But that's more of a, you know, we just need to create the systems in order to do that. So, and not to say that, you know, there's been, Justin with Agriscaping has done a great job of trying to create those operations. You know, you're doing it as well. And it's awesome, man. We're all in our infancy still in many ways, but these systems are building, and hopefully we get a couple people listen to this who light bulbs go off and go, I got a way to help with this, you know, or I know somebody. And as we get the word out, and we can, you know, we can start connecting and pulling this off, man. Yeah. So that's kind of where I see it. And I see myself, you know, at my own home level, like I want to do a farm because I just want to put my practice. I mean, no offense, I love doing suburban permaculture, but I want to have a go at bigger land. Like I want to put my practice to bigger tests, and to, you know, before I get too old to do any of this stuff, I want to have a go at bigger projects, you know, and to see how could we do this where we're really generating some incredible production, but also these productive models that just blend perfectly with kind of like the greater wildlife, you know, and the greater ecosystem of the Sonoran Desert. You know, I always say my dream is to have, like, my peach tree it has a globe mallow bush underneath it, and it's being shaded on the western side by a velvet mesquite tree, you know, and that's kind of that's how I dream of my yard or even my farm. Yeah. And incorporate, and that is kind of what agroforestry is. And yeah, man, that's what I want. These very lots of variety, incorporating all of these plants that have been, again, evolved for 10,000 years to be here, combined with the most optimal productive species that have the lowest chill hours, and, you know, that do the best. They're very heat tolerant and who've proven to grow well in these hot ass places. And you marry them all together, combined with the water systems of, you know, channeling this abundant rains when it don't rain often, but when it does, you know, you can have deluges of water. Yeah. And if that water ends up in the right spot,
the right places,
man, you can it's just off the charts how productive those systems can be. Yeah. So.
Do you see yourself living in Arizona for the rest of your life?
Probably, maybe to the chagrin of my wife, but yeah, I really love Arizona. I mean, I love it here. I've lived here since '94. I was born and raised in South Jersey, in a forest, you know, at 2 acres. We lived on 2 acres, trees everywhere. And that was my childhood. And I think that's why I'm so into nature. And, you know, I was like, I had a little bit of a Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn kind of childhood still, growing up in the 80s and then moved here in the 90s, and then have grown to fall in love with the desert. And then, but I feel like in some ways that growing up in that very green, lush place, I've always wanted to like reforest. Like I always wanted to like come here and plant more, you know, because again, I've always, if you can have, I love the dry air. I love the mountainscapes. I love the desert flora and fauna, but I love oases in the desert. Yeah. You know, I've always loved that. And I want to be, I just love, and we have torn down a lot of desert to develop. And I would say with a lot of poor design, or maybe we just need to, you know, maybe poor design is just part of the learning process. But there's so much opportunity for better design. Like the parts of the desert we've leveled and destroyed, can we make sure that is not done for, you know, recklessly and so wastefully? And can we, if we're gonna do that, how do we potentially, you know, create better design and reintroduce some of that desert back, but also, you know, have these human-centric, you know, the spaces that we're living in. So I see myself living here for the foreseeable future. I plan on living a long life, so I can't, you know, like when in my 60s, 70s, and 80s, who knows? For sure the next 20 years though, I'm here, baby. And I'm committed to, I really want to be here. You know, I want to be here. I have all this knowledge of this desert. I've been a landscaper my whole adult life, so I feel like I have all this anecdotal experience and anecdotal experience of seeing like where the plants grow best, and all the yards that I've been in throughout Phoenix. I mean, I used to have like 100 houses that I was doing mow and blow maintenance accounts, and all of that little, you know, just info, just all the things that I've seen here, and
the
then
hours of the observation.
Yeah, that's for me to go move to another place. On some level, I just feel like I have the most to offer Sonoran Desert, and that's why I think I have the most to offer the world through that experience. Yeah. And deserts are humans. I don't know. There's just something so cool about humans who can create civilizations in these deserts. So, there's just something so impressive. Yeah. And we have a long history. I mean, look at the Egyptians, right? These people who've lived in these very inhospitable places, but who, you know, they had the Nile River, so obviously that was quite helpful. Yeah. But you know what? We have the Salt River. You know, we have other water sources in these places that if you put them to their maximum usage, you can create really beautiful, incredible human civilizations. So I think we have a long way though to improve upon, because the current model is unsustainable. We are pumping underground aquifers at unsustainable rates. We are bringing too much of our water is dependent from the Colorado River now that no longer barely makes it to Mexico anymore, you know, because we're just too many straws in it. And you know, part of the rainwater revolution is that technically right here in our city in Phoenix, Arizona, if we had gutters and tanks on every house, every commercial building, every industrial building in town, and if you put it all into a tank and incorporated that water, there's in an average rainy year of 7.5 inches a year, you could meet all needs of residential, commercial, and industrial needs for the whole year. So that is the power of rainwater. Every 1,000 square feet of roof catchment in a 1-inch rain event accumulates 632 gallons of water, and that's just the roofs. That let alone the water falling on the adjacent ground around us. Right. And moving and using that water most optimally. We have so much of the water falling right on our heads, even in these crazy places like here where it barely rains sometimes. Yeah. And we definitely ebb and flow. And in low years, we're not going to meet the need. But in high years, you can bank, you know. And
if you bank enough in the high years, then you can meet the need in the low years.
That's it, man. And even at a minimum, even if we just did 20%, you know, think how much better we would be, and how much better the Colorado River would be, and how much better the underground aquifers would be, and how much better our long-term sustainability on this land. Again, can we live here for 7 generations?
Yeah.
Under the current model, no, man, and that is alarming. And again, part of this kind of just the sickness of our species of, you know, profit maximization in the short term, and who gives a shit about my grandchildren. And that obviously has got to change. So, and this model of what we're talking about could get us there.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do it alone. We're going to have to baptize some of y'all into this religion, if you will, the religion of rainwater.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Create more practitioners.
Create more practitioners.
Because like there's a lot of, I mean, we've talked about this too. There's a lot of permaculture design courses out there.
Mm-hmm.
You can pay several $100s or a few $1,000s, whatever, to do stuff online, to do a lot of like sort of textbook learning, a lot of online course learning. And there's actually surprisingly little, especially in a place like Phoenix. I mean, there's some awesome practical permaculture certification programs throughout the world where you're gonna go and actually do it. But in a place like Phoenix, like we need to build that. We need to partner with the PDCs, the existing PDCs, right? And get the students out to the job sites.
Yeah, I know, and I got to do better at that. I mean, we've been really just like honing the craft over the last couple of years. Yeah. You know, our guy Don Titmus up in Mesa, who's been running a local PDC for years. You know, he's actually, you know, he's even thrown us customers and things like that. But we definitely need, especially now that we're kind of out of our pioneer phasing as a business and kind of into a little bit, I mean, whatever the next level of maturity is.
Yeah.
Still got a long road to go, but being able to as a for-profit business, also branching out into the greater permaculture community. That's one of our goals here for the next couple of years. So no doubt about it. And that's where, you know, someone like you is just, you're a gatherer, you're a connector, you know, that's one of your big superpowers. And so, you know, we got to combine our forces, and anybody out there listening to, if we can get a couple of you to even hear this message, you know, us uniting together and really wherever you're the best at, can you incorporate that into what we're trying to get done here? You know, there's so many things it requires to move this forward, and a lot of it's like boring shit, like accountants and you know, lawyers and some of that stuff that's
boring to us.
You know, no offense, sorry guys, but we need your help
to those people. Yeah,
we need your help.
That point in case.
Yeah,
it's like I've always said, right from when I started Homegrown in 2023, like there is a place for everyone in this nonprofit, this community organization. You know, if you have the heart for the mission, how can you plug in? Yeah. How can you plug in as a partner, as an employee, as a whatever? I don't really care, but there's something for everybody, something to be done that everybody's going to bring a unique superpower to. And like you said, I mean, joining forces is how we're going to have outsized impact. Yes. It's how we're going to save the world, instead of each trying to kind of do our own things, have our own clients and all that. So.
Yeah, and exactly. Like anyone who's doing a for-profit permaculture landscape business, I don't see you as my competition. I see you as my friend. I mean, and I see us as allies in a very abundant world, you know, and we're not competing over jobs and all that. Like I think there's more jobs than you know, we turn down jobs on the west side of Phoenix. Just can't get there, man. I'm driving 3 hours every day just to get to the job. If someone on the west side of Phoenix is doing this and you need some help, I'd be happy to, you know, have a couple phone calls with you if I can help level you up quicker to become a better practitioner, to become a better, you know, business guy. I mean, again, hey, if you're a good business guy, I could use your help. So, you know, we want to see this roll forth all across the city. I mean, I've always said one of the goals, especially on the landscaping side, is like, I want to go through neighborhoods 20 years from now, and 10 to 20% of the houses have water tanks, have fruit trees, have native pollinator
Mulch
plants,
on the
have mulch on the
ground.
ground, have, you know, basin arroyo systems, all this kind of stuff. We want to see. I would love to see 20% of the houses 20 years from now, and then I would say that would be a smashing success, and it would be a way cooler city, literally and figuratively, if we did that. And it would be it lights people up when you go into these kind of properties. Watch some of the Galaxy Garden videos, watch the permascaping videos, you know, read Brad Lancaster's book, and it lights you up, man. You go this, it's hard not to see the vision and go, this is better than just gravel and, you know, non-native shade trees, or you know, lantanas and bougainvilleas and, you know, astroturf and, you know, pavers everywhere. These are better, man. I'm sorry. I don't even think it's necessarily. I think these systems, this design model is unarguably better.
Yeah.
And most people, especially if you're a conscious human being, you're gonna just naturally go, oh, this. You intuitively hear the gong go off and go, this is the way we should be living. This is a return to the land movement at an urban suburban level. Because it's hard, man. It's not, we can't all go buy the 40 acres. It's most likely, even though we all have that dream of, me and my friends will get the 40 acres and we'll go move out of town and blah, blah, blah. Most likely, most of us are not going to do that. So we need to start revisioning how we see our suburban and urban, and get busy here, man.
Exactly. Like superimposing that romantic vision onto the existing infrastructure. How can we create a 40-acre urban eco-village where we're not necessarily all on the same plot of land or all like super geographically close, although that's ideal, but through the power of the existing infrastructure, like you said, who's already got all the citrus trees, who's got massive figs and mulberries and, you know, mature fruit trees, and how do we bring these people together? How do we start generating resources and assets that we can share amongst ourselves, even if it's like a distributed village?
Absolutely, man. I mean, you and me have dreamed a lot about this together. So we've, you know, this is not our first time talking about this, but it definitely gets me very excited to think about. And I think when we talk about how do we make our world better, how do we, you know, many of us are waking up to kind of the darkness of the kind of global system, but it feels so overwhelming. Like, what are you and me going to do about it? You know, what are you and me going to do about Monsanto? And especially when none of the politicians seem to want to keep them accountable, right? So it feels so hopeless. This feels like the one thing we can do. You know, this feels like the one thing we can do.
To do our own thing.
Go off grid right here in town as best you can. I mean, maybe it's impossible all the way, or pretty close. But again, with really smart people, you know, we were talking about maybe some lawyers listening to this and has got some great ideas on how to use land in a legal way and blah, blah, blah.
We need a lawyer on the board.
We need all those kind of people too to help us to think of, all right, I like what you guys are cooking, but did you know about this and these loopholes, and we can This is the kind of thing that's coalescing, I believe, and again, we're not the first guys to even do this stuff. There are examples all around the world. We have a lot more like legal hurdles here in America. It's like in some ways it's almost easier to do this in a third world country where the village is a little more cohesive still. We're all so separated by, especially, you know, land ownership and all the stuff. But you know, here in the West, we've been blessed to be educated. We got some smart cookies here in our country in America. For the most part, we've had free speech to be able to express ourselves. And so let's use the gift of living inside the empire, the benefits of living inside the empire, and use some of the gifts we've been given to engineer our way out of this, you know, and I think we're onto something here. And this is definitely part of it. And part of that, again, is just how do we go back to the building blocks of life where we don't want to be controlled by corporate farms that are poisoning us. And again, there's no accountability to the poisoning. as if they're all in on it, whatever. The antidote again to that is we got to take back the systems that bring us the building blocks of life. And that's, we need clean food, we need clean water, and we need, shelter for all. And those are kind of things that are really, really vital. If we're gonna, we got to start there. We can talk about all the other ancillary industries thereafter, but if your food and your water is being poisoned and it's horrible quality and it's controlled by some corporation, yada, 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 then that's where the revolution's got to start. So, and you don't have to pick up a gun. You just got to pick up a shovel.
Yeah.
Pick up a shovel, man.
Yeah. Pick up a seed bomb.
Yeah, seed bomb. So, yeah.
Good stuff, man.
It's been awesome.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thanks for coming into my life.
Oh, my God.